Okay, so I wanted to get started asking about what it really inspired you to come up with the idea for the documentary and how it got started and what that process was like of really getting the idea for the film together and working out the details for
Sure.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I was ready to make a film. This is my first feature, so I knew I wanted to make my own documentary, and I got the inspiration for this story from a segment of Rachel Maddow. I was watching her, and she had this segment about this fetal personhood movement and an amendment that was on the ballot in Mississippi. And I kind of did a double take. I was like, what? Because the idea of a state elevating the rights of fertilized eggs, embryos, and fetuses over that of a woman, or giving equal rights, the implications of that were so far reaching. So I knew I wanted to make something in this realm. And as I started researching the fetal personhood movement and looking at cases, I started finding these crazy stories about women who were arrested for suspicious miscarriages and stillbirths, women who'd been forced to have C-sections. And I knew that that was the story that I needed to tell, because while personhood laws kind of flow out of the anti-choice movement, the ripple effects are so great down into people's lives who have no intention of ending their pregnancies. And that story wasn't getting much light of day. There might be a splashy story about, the woman who fell down the stairs and was arrested, but the longevity of that attention really fell away because people get caught up in this kind of binary look at abortion. You're either for it or against it. And so in the shadows, this issue is really playing out and across the country in states like New York and California and Wisconsin. And that really shocked me. And so that was really the genesis of the project.
Also, once you really started working on the project, what was the research process like for you and really delving into more of these cases and really finding out more information overall across the country as well?
Yeah, it it was eye-opening, and I know people use that phrase a lot, but truly, going into it, going down one rabbit hole and another rabbit hole, um, it was really stunning to read these stories. And then I started to learn about the activists and organizations that are on the ground working against these laws that are being put in place. And there are so many people out there dedicated to this issue. And I was so lucky to be able to connect with several of those organizations for the film and learn about their work and then learn about what we need to do. And it's just been this incredible learning process. I'm still learning every day, and I'm still kind of adjusting my framework of looking at everything. It's a process.
And also, I wanted to ask about, like you mentioned, this being your first feature documentary that you worked on, and particularly as a director. And I wanted to ask about that experience getting to direct the movie and just maybe your overall directing style once production began as well.
Yeah. Well, you go into it and, I have a history of editing, and I know how to, work on story and stuff. But when you have this laying in front of you, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants. And it was really exciting. I have a background in research, and I loved figuring out where we were going to go next and what story we were going to focus on. And then when you come away with all of that information, crafting a story like this, we traveled to 7 states and we interviewed so many people. That is where the challenge really kicked in, was when I was sitting, because I ended up editing the project as well. So just like looking at all of this information and trying to find a way to tell a story about an issue that isn't very well understood, and to tell it broadly, to show the depth of it and to show why these laws exist in the first place. That was the most challenging part. Outside of just the financial aspects of making your first film and trying to find the support. I didn't know how to write a grant proposal. But after I had worked on it several years, that's when our producer, Rosalie Miller, came in and really taught me a lot about the business side of filmmaking. That wasn't my realm. And so that really elevated the film and the project from that point forth.
Also, speaking about the producing, I also wanted to ask about that experience for you as well, and kind of balancing the directing with the producing and why you were interested in producing as well.
Yeah, well, I just really, I was focusing on the directing and, also the raising money and also the story producing and all of that. But this this film couldn't have been made with our producer Rosalie Miller, and you know the effort that it took to keep that fundraising engine going. The longevity of it, 7 years, and she was part of it from 2014 on. When you're a small team, and when I first started, you're your own team, right? And then slowly you start to pull other people onto the project as they get interested, and that's when everything starts to sing, because you really need a very strong team behind you and with you to help bring a story like this to the screen.
Also, I wanted to ask about going out and working with your cinematographer and deciding what that experience would be like and how you would film and shoot the movie overall, and just that collaboration together as well.
Yeah. Well, our cinematographer, Mark Pingree, he and I go way back. We've worked on several things together. And so I knew that I wanted him to shoot the film, because I had traveled to many places around the world with him shooting film. And I just love his style. And so we already had a super good working style and friendship going back and forth. So our work was fun. And we just kind of had a language between us. I kind of let him do his thing, and then I say, oh, I really want to catch this, or I really want to catch this. But I just so appreciated his style and his beautiful shots of Wisconsin. I love that, we have those in there, because it really contrasts with what's happening underneath this, all American, fields and, American flag and all of that stuff. Under that, in these small towns, there are people like Tammy who are getting swept up in these laws and having their rights denied.
Also, speaking about featuring Tammy in the movie as well as everyone else, I also wanted to ask about that process of deciding who you would feature in the movie and going out and really maybe interviewing them and including them in their stories in the film.
Yeah. I was really fortunate to be able to interview several really courageous women who told their story about how their lives would be impacted by personhood laws. But when the focus became about the criminalization and targeting of pregnant people, that's when I was introduced to Tammy. And I felt that story was the one that really needed to be lifted up, because it doesn't get much coverage in the mainstream press. And so I was introduced to Tammy by National Advocates for Pregnant Women, and they were working on her case. And just her courage in coming forward to tell such a stigmatizing story. We first started filming with Tammy when her baby was an infant. He was only a couple of months old. And so I have 3 kids, and I think about what that would have been like to be interviewing and telling this really hard story when you have an infant. I'm so inspired by her courage with that. And she really grilled me when we first started this process. We had a phone call, and she wanted to know what my intentions were, what my viewpoint was. Her goal was that this wouldn't happen. She wanted to participate so that her story could be used to try to keep this from happening to other women. And she knew that was my goal too. And so we just, forged ahead, and, following her over several years, you really get to see the long-term impact of what happened to her. But it was also pretty amazing because I got to celebrate a couple of birthdays with Harmonious and just get to be a part of their family, which was really an honor. And, you know, I still talk with Tammy. I just got a text from her a couple weeks ago, and she said, Jo, I just started watching The Handmaid's Tale, and now I understand why people were comparing my case to that story. And that really hit me hard because, you know, she had not looked at the show and didn't want to face that. But I just thought that, I thought that was kind of a really incredible circle for her to get to, you know, where she's beyond this, but can look back at it like that.
Also, lastly, I wanted to ask about the film coming out this week on VOD and why you feel that was so important to have the official release this week with the inauguration and the story being so timely. What that experience was like of having that VOD release this week as well.
Oh, it's so exciting to know that the film is finally out there for everybody to see. You know, you don't know that that's going to happen when you're making this film. You hope for that. And so to have that happening, and, you know, one of the reasons why I think we're in this situation is that we don't have a balance in our power structures. There aren't enough women in there. There aren't enough people of color in our power structures. And so today, right now, as Kamala Harris is being sworn in, it's extremely exciting, and to see a more diverse cabinet that represents more Americans. When we really have truly representative government, I think issues like the one we're talking about in the film will happen less. I think it will be lessened. We need to have that. We need more voices speaking for people.
Okay, great. Thank you very much again for taking the time, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Karen. It's so nice to meet you. I appreciate it.
You too. Thanks again. Bye.